What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Line Jawn Flyers postgame show. Tonight, the Philadelphia Flyers lose another one that could have been on the other side of the things, but they lose tonight 6-4 up in Detroit as the Red Wings take the second game in the last 7 days. But with me, as always, alongside Joey Marks, I am James Scorza. What's going on, Joe? How you been, buddy?
Well, I'm ticked off.
Yeah,
That is an understatement. This is a game that should have been in the Flyers' grasp, and it got away from them and it shouldn't have. There's no excuse.
no excuse at all. And I think that's the one thing we were talking about with the last previous game I talked about on the pregame show, rather, when they looked kind of sloppy against Minnesota. And it kind of felt like the same way going into this game tonight, Joe.
Yeah, sloppy and turnovers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Keith Jones went into the commentary booth to say hello to his old friends in the early second period, and even he saw it. But you could see it from the puck drop. Like this team just was sluggish, was slow, and was really, really sloppy with the puck.
Yeah, and I think the thing I took out of this game tonight was the basically, like you just said, was like sloppiness and a very little concerning, but for the most part, I think for the best part about it is that um Steve Roth checks in and says he has a question to ask. Sure, go right ahead, buddy. Um, but we'll get into the highlight reel of what the Flyers look tonight. So basically, the first period, I mean, I guess it was a good first period. I mean, it wasn't one of the best I've seen with the Flyers, but overall, it was probably something that I would have expected more out of that first period because they looked very well the last time these two clubs met 7 days ago. And somehow, in some way, I mean, slow starts are not going to do it to you, especially against very good. I mean, I can understand Minnesota was a team that is a very good team and they look very slow, but Detroit, on the other hand, I mean, they're not that good of a team, and I kind of am surprised how they look tonight. They look like I said, they look very sloppy for the most part of the game.
Yeah, so the first period, the Flyers are really fortunate to
Mm-hmm.
have got out of that first period the way that they did with a tie, I believe.
Yeah.
1-1. And here's the reason why I say that. They were definitely outshot
Mm-hmm.
and they were definitely out attacked. And just before we came on, Pat, who's behind the glass for us tonight, basically said, he could punch Harrison in the mouth. And
Mm-hmm.
in some ways I agree. In some ways I don't. Look, that guy literally was put in a blender in the first period, and it
Mm-hmm.
didn't let up throughout the game.
Yeah.
That guy was going into 2-on-1s, 2-on-0s, and just especially in the first period, the amount of saves he made that were amazing saves. That game could have been out of hand way earlier than it was. They lost it in the third period, but James, they could have lost that game in the first period.
Yeah, no question about it, Joe. I think the one thing I was really surprised about in this game that just the level of start they had. I mean, it was just a big. I mean, it's not all concerning because I can understand that this is a team that, like, last week, Scott Lawn scored 4 goals on them, and it's like, okay, you're not going to score 4 goals on me tonight. So basically, I mean, Alex Lyon, the one that got away, basically, the one.
Another one.
Another one
Another
that got
one.
away. Yeah, exactly. Seeing him in goal tonight and looking stellar, it's like, Jesus God. I mean, it was just, it wasn't. I'm not annoyed at the effort. I'm just annoyed how sloppy they look for the most part too.
I recall about 3 years ago or so, me and you discussing on our other show that Alex Lyon should be the starting goaltender
Right.
when there was goaltender turmoil and we weren't entirely sure. You were just like, listen, this guy is good, he's talented, he's young, give him a
Mm-hmm.
chance. And again,
Yeah.
it's another young goaltender slipped through the fingers of the Flyers organization.
Yep. No, you're right, Joe. You're absolutely right. I mean, I mean, at the time when Alex Lyon was in goal back in the day, it was like still trying to find their footing. Obviously, they didn't have
Mhm,
Carter Hart yet, and
mhm.
obviously they didn't have like the goaltender situation we have now. But let's get into our highlight reel of the night because the Flyers got off to. It's basically the big story. It was in that third period when they scored two unanswered goals in a matter of like 30+ seconds or so. The first one was the first goal of the game to give the Flyers to cut the lead to one, and that was I forget who it was who got the first goal of the game.
Konechny.
Connecting, that's right.
Konechny.
Travis Connecting got the first goal. 18 seconds, I think, it was a few seconds in to the game, so it made it a 1-0 lead.
It was like a minute into the game. He got it. He got it in, and listen, it was beautiful. And Travis Konechny is time and time again. This is a guy that is going to be a leader on this team, and he's going to be a scoring leader. He's going to be a vocal leader. He's going to be an emotional leader. But getting out to that first goal lead, like a little over a minute into the game, that's a tone setter.
Yeah,
That's it. That's setting the tone for your team, but it wasn't enough.
it wasn't enough. That's exactly right, and even Pat said it. That was his 16th goal this season. So Detroit tied the game up at one after one. But then the second period came and went for the Flyers. But more importantly, that second period, as my dad brought up, as I can look it up right here, it says Flyers look like they played in mud tonight. As the second period, more into the game, they looked playing like they were in mud all night long. So I could see that happen tonight. But the Red Wings, on the other hand, took over that second period, and that second period was all Detroit.
And the biggest problem with that second period was that the Flyers found themselves in the penalty box far too often. The Detroit Red Wings had 3 penalty power plays in that second period, and they scored on one of them.
Yep.
That's just not good enough. Like the idea that you need to be more disciplined, especially within a short time span, and it just didn't seem like from the beginning of the second period on, they just were not disciplined, because a lot of those things continued in the third, and it got a little screwy that we'll get into a little later about the third period. But the second period, the storyline for the second period was too many penalties, too many dumb penalties by the Flyers.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree 100%. I think the one thing I took out of that game too was that the level of undiscipline on the penalties. Obviously, you think about it. Obviously, they got a real good bunch over there. They got Alex DeBrincat, they got Patrick Kane, they got all these other players. I mean, it's kind of surprising that they are really playing not to their standard. And I mean, obviously, they're like right. Not they're not like horrible, but they're at the same time. I mean, like they're not like the same team as they were last season as well.
The more and more I listened to this game, and the people that I was hearing, like Tarasenko and
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Kane and Gustafson and
Yep.
DeBrinko, like
DeBrincat. Yeah.
DeBrinken. Like, here's the thing: is if you were to look at this roster on the Detroit Red Wings side 2 or 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
you'd say that, wow, that's a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not so much. I mean, look, Tarasenko is a shell of himself in Detroit,
Yep.
and some of the younger players are just, they're trying to get their footing at such an early stage in their career.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, look, when you have a guy like Patrick Kane, who is basically a lockdown, stone cold lock for the Hall of Fame, whenever he decides to hang out the skates, like that's an invaluable person to have on your team.
Well, yeah, I do agree with that, and like even Pat brought up is that Patrick Kane was on a tear tonight. Basically, he's been a pain on the side of the Flyers for God knows how long. I remember, like 15 years ago, capturing that Stanley Cup on our home ice, and he's still. I called him out tonight for. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on in the background. Sorry about that. Patrick Kane, like for 15+ years, let alone like the last 17 or 18, he's been around for going back to. He started. He's always been a Flyer killer, and tonight was no question about it. Once again,
Yeah, hasn't scored, hasn't put up a point in 10 games. This guy, had 2 points tonight, goal and assist, and
mm-hmm.
like he's still just he's a Flyers killer. I mean,
He is.
they're just fly, and that's why like I was surprised that he came back to any team, especially that wasn't the Blackhawks. And the fact that he did, I'm like, great. Like, can't you just hang it up for our sake?
Right.
Like, enough is enough.
It's funny too that even my dad brought up too is that the second period was a return tonight as well. I do agree 100%. That was the big key in that game. But with Patrick Kane too, I mean, obviously he was that's the first overall pick, and we had the second overall pick in that draft, and we got James Van Riemsdyk and everything like that. That was. But,
so we picked JVR over Patrick Kane.
Well, I mean, it's basically just the Philadelphia dialogue that we can't get the best player around. Anyway, so let's go to the third period now. So the Flyers had 2 goals in that third stanza that made basically a game out. The first goal came in just a few minutes in. I think it was Sean Couturier setting up Ryan Poehling to give the Flyers some life at 4-3.
Yeah, the Red Wings really poured it on early in the third, and then midway through the third, the Flyers kind of resurged, but with 4-2 going down to 4-3 with Couturier.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: is I'll give the Flyers this. It was a sloppy, ugly. I am not by any means happy with this performance for the Flyers, but
Agreed.
The only compliment that I can say is that they at least fought back in the third period. Because honestly, for a team that came out as flat and as sloppy as they played, or for 2/3 of this game, they could have laid down. I mean, they could have, but they didn't. So I applaud them on that. They scored the goal to put it up to 4-3, and then later on they scored another goal to tie it up at 4-4.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into like the fourth goal of the game. And this one was really a fantastic goal from like end to end. Obviously, I think the one thing that remind me of Owen Tippett's goal was kind of like, I guess Patrick Kane was like, I think my buddy Jonathan Toews did that back in the day against Detroit too. So it was like kind of like a little bit of a FU too.
Young Jonathan Toews. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to go there, but it kind of reminded me of like the forehand backhand. I'm thinking, and Patrick Kane's like, wait a minute, did I see that before? But yeah, so he ties the game up at 4-4 apiece. And
Owen Tippett is on a tear.
He's been on a tear. Yes, he has.
He's just, I mean, this is a guy who we've wanted and have been waiting for this surge. And now we're seeing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think I thought that was going to be the game. Like after the Flyers tied it up at 4, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to come back and win this. But unfortunately, around maybe 1-2 minutes later, the Flyers had an opportunity. Detroit got the opportunity, and Patrick Kane, the Flyer killer, again gives Detroit rather, the 5-4 lead.
Here's the thing: is with Patrick Kane, he's a talent. There's no doubt in my mind, and he is a Flyers killer. But I will tell you this. That doesn't matter. Some guys, we've seen it before. Jaromir Jagr, Peter Forsberg, Chris Pronger. Guys that are in their older stages of their career, there are certain players that are just unique enough that still have it. Still have enough gas in the tank. And like Patrick Kane, is a guy that I think has still got some gas in the tank, unfortunately, for the Flyers. Now, I will put it down as a hot take. I would not be against if the Flyers wanted to see if the Red Wings wanted to shop maybe Patrick Kane to the Flyers, because I'd rather have that guy, even if he's on the third or fourth line, sitting on our team versus killing our team.
Give him an offer that he can't refuse, right, Joe?
Yeah. By the way, Stevie Y, another person that was a Flyer killer, was in the building back in the day with the Red Wings. He was also a Flyer killer. So Stevie Y was in the building. So there was a couple former Flyers and a couple Flyer killers in the building.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't see Pavel Datsyuk there or even like Henrik Zetterberg. But
we exiled them back to Russia.
There you go, and probably Sergei Fedorov too, probably.
Yeah,
too. There you go. So basically, the Flyers, like I said, lose again tonight, but they got the empty netter goal to make it 6-4. So the next test for the Flyers, like Pat brought up, is like even Sam Ersson really struggled tonight. I don't think it was I don't want to say it was a bad game, but it could have been a better outing for him.
Listen, when he had a lot of shots against him. The defense failed him up in front of him.
Hmm.
So that didn't help. The turnovers and the odd man rushes don't help. When you're basically leaving your goaltender naked, it's not going to be a good night for your goaltender. I mean, it
Definitely.
just isn't. And there were a lot of times where there was, especially towards the end with that empty netter. And I know it's like, an empty netter. Who cares? But Sanheim didn't pinch enough, and that turnover basically sealed the deal.
Yep.
And like when you basically shoot yourself in the foot, you
Hmm.
kind of deserve it. On a side note, I will give Detroit a lot of credit. So when Patrick Kane scored that fifth goal,
Hmm.
not many players get the I guess the cachet to have like a song. Like you've heard walk up music for like baseball players,
Yeah.
but like I've never heard a player have like his own goal scoring song.
Hmm.
They had the Hulk Hogan I'm a Real American
Yeah, I
playing
noticed that.
after
Yeah.
Patrick Kane. I'm like, okay, I get it. He's Captain America. I understand. We
Mr.
don't
America,
care.
like back in the day too, right? Yeah. You know what's funny? I'm not even kidding you. I heard some other wrestling songs that night too.
Yeah,
I think when the Flyers scored, I heard the Kurt Angle song, and then I
yeah,
think there was another one before we came on here, the Stone Cold Steve Austin theme
yeah.
too, when they started to get ugly. Okay, so like I said, the Flyers lose again tonight, 6-4. Basically 5-4, but there was just a goal at the end. There was an
Yeah.
empty netter. So the Flyers' next opponent, Pat, if you can look, if you can check out, Pat, can you do me a favor? Can you bring up that 10th seed again for like the Flyers' record this season? Because I didn't see it actually, if you don't mind. There it is. All right, so the Flyers fall to 14-14 this season, basically 500, and now are the 10th seed. So basically 500 hockey once again has been the storyline all season long, and tonight was pretty much the same as it was all season.
Well, listen, did we expect that this team would be a 7 to 10 game over 500 team right now? No.
Right.
And like they're gonna have this small little break coming up shortly.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're gonna have to imagine that we're gonna see really where the metal of some of these players really is. Because when it gets to the doldrums of the season, that's when you know whether or not these kids have sea legs and are able to push it up the ice and pinch the blue line at defense. They got to clean stuff up, and
They
I'm
do.
sure that Torts is going to lay into some people in order to, to kind of fix things together.
Mhm.
I think the next matchup, if I'm not wrong, is the Kings at
Yep.
home.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Kings come by actually tomorrow night, rather, just for the second game of a back-to-back. My dad brought up again tonight that the Flyers can't give up a 2-0 and flat-out breakaways on opportunities like that and
Yeah.
expect the goaltender to make every save.
Yep.
Hung Erson out to dry tonight, and basically that's what happened tonight. That's
Yeah.
basically what the storyline was, that the Flyers hung him out to dry tonight. So the Flyers' next opponent will be the Los Angeles Kings. Not know much about LA, but I really do know that they still got Anze Kopitar, they still got Kevin Fiala, they got Drew Doughty. I mean, they got a lot of good players on this team, and tomorrow, if they don't play well like they do tonight, it's going to be it's pretty much the same as it is tonight.
So the question you really have to ask yourself is, are the Flyers going to take this disappointing loss and come back home on a back-to-back and be able to thrive against the team that, came across country and is on a road trip?
Right.
Like, ultimately, this is going to be a battle of attrition
Mm-hmm.
between which team wants it more. So, I hope that the Flyers come out pissed. I hope they
I
take the
agree.
flight. I hope they take the flight from Detroit to Philly, the hour and a half to 2 hour flight from Detroit to Philly. And I hope that when they get land and they get home, they get rested, they get up tomorrow, they have a hard practice, and all of them look at each other and go, look, that was last night. Tonight we have to turn the page. We have an opportunity not only to rectify what we weren't able to do last night, but we're able to possibly do it against a team that's on a road trip and could be tired or fatigued.
Yeah. So Pat brings up who's going to be who's the MVP of this game tonight. I hate to say right now, but I know I'm going to get so much heat for this, but I got to go with Patrick Kane. It's just that he's been the MVP before, and once again, he's like 36, 37, 38 years old, soaking wet still. So I got to go with the hot hand. I got to go maybe with Detroit tonight. But for me, for a Flyer player, I got to go with, you know what? I'm going to go with Owen Tippett because he's been on a tear, like you said early on.
So if I had to put an MVP on this game, I would. I would. Say,
I know it pains me too. I know. Believe me, I know.
I really don't want to. Can we just say his number? His number's 88. Like, okay, his number's 88. That's the guy.
I would say 88 too, but the only people think 88 is Eric Lindros.
Fine, then let them think that, but I'm not saying his name. I still haven't gotten over 2010, all right? It's been 14 years. I haven't gotten over it.
You and me both, bud. I totally 100% agree. All right, let's get into the quick round of National Hockey League before we say our final goodbyes. We'll get into our grades of the night right before we say our final sign-off. So it's the Stars, Toronto rather takes on Dallas tonight, leading 4-2 around the 8:30 mark of the third period. The second game of the doubleheader tonight between the Wild and the Panthers, that started up soon, so I'm guessing that's starting up right about now. Canucks taking on Utah tonight. That's a 10 o'clock start, and Winnipeg taking on Anaheim to take on the Ducks. And quick around the National tomorrow, because I think we're going to be not going to be on the schedule tomorrow night. I think it's going to be Pat and his buddy Pavel will be doing the post game afterwards. So let's double check what's around the National for tomorrow's slate too. Devils taking on Columbus. The Blues taking on Tampa Bay. Like I said, the Flyers take on the Kings. Pittsburgh up in Nashville. Seattle taking on Chicago. Senators taking on the Flames. Bruins taking on the Oilers. Canucks taking on Vegas rather, and San Jose takes on Colorado on the last game of the night. That's a 10:30 game, and on Saturday rather, the Flyers will be on the road trip to take on those three Western teams, like I bring up, in the Kings and the Sharks, and I think it's the San Jose Sharks on that Western road trip. But let's get into our grades of the night before we say our final goodbyes for the night. As the Flyers. I was looking at this and I said, if I had to give the Flyers a grade tonight, I got to give it a C because, I mean, it's not like they played bad, but it could have been better. It really could have been a better matchup. Obviously, penalties kill teams sometimes in this league, but I got to go with a C. What about you, Joe?
I got to go with a D. I wasn't impressed with a lot of what I saw. This Detroit Red Wings team is not a team that's like an offensive juggernaut, but you wouldn't know it by the score and you wouldn't know it by watching that game. But the Flyers, time and time again, this game shot themselves in the foot. I give them a D because the penalties in the second period, the slow start in the first period, it was a tale of three cities, three different stories. Bad start, slow first start in the first period, penalties in the second period, and just straight goofiness and sloppiness in the third period. So I give them a D. They need to come back tomorrow night, and they need to
come out hungry. They gotta come out hungry, like looking for sharks in the water. Smell blood in the water rather.
If they have another goal early, like they had tonight with TK, they have to put their foot down on the King's throat. That's what has to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, like I said, and the other thing too with the Kings is that they're like one of the best teams in the AHL right now. So if you play sloppy against them, it could be a long night for them once again.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight, and we really do appreciate it. I'd like to thank my friend and also my brother from another, Joey Marks, once again. Join us tonight, as always, for this Flyers post-game show, Third Line Jawn Flyers post-game show, excuse me. I want to thank my guy behind the glass, Pat Benoit, for doing all the toots and whistles. We really do appreciate it and all that. I thank you for everybody who chimed in also on Hardcore Sports Network and on Stream Punk Entertainment. I will be back again tomorrow for the pregame show between the Flyers and Kings. And stay tuned after right here on Stream Punk Entertainment for the third Line Jawn Flyers postgame show with Pat Bernard and Pavel. And I can't say your last name. Please forgive me. I'll do it eventually. But for everyone behind the scenes and for everyone made this all possible, for Joey Marks, I'm James Scores, and for Pat Bernard behind the glass, this has been the third Line Jawn Flyers postgame show. Thanks a lot for joining us. We are out.
Later.